This program, of course, is presented by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most widely read, widely sold, and respected wrestling magazine in the world today.
Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Podcast, episode number 8. I am PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined as always by Dan Murphy, fellow senior writer. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing okay. Happy Fat Tuesday to you.
All right, so we're here on a Tuesday, and we've got a lot to talk about. Raw from last night, heading into Fast Lane this Sunday, and well on the road to WrestleMania. And also later on, I'll be joined by former ECW heavyweight champion Mikey Whipwreck, who these days works for the New York Wrestling Connection here in my parts, Long Island, New York. And they've got their big show of the year, the Psycho Circus, coming up. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a bit about his career. We'll talk about the state of the indies. For now, Dan, why don't we talk a bit about Raw last night? I guess it's the newsiest thing. Again, I don't know if they're setting the world on fire. It's really funny. I always talk about how, for all the criticisms of WWE's writing team, I feel like usually right around now they start banging on all cylinders headed into WrestleMania. And part of it is that I think that's when you see wrestlers kind of take ownership of their own storylines and angles. And it's not to discredit what the writing staff does, but I feel like that's the time of year, at least among the wrestlers who have the stroke to do that, again, really get involved in their storylines. I don't know if that's happening so much now. I mean, certainly with the main storyline, and maybe part of it is that heading into WrestleMania, the top guys in the company and who are looking to be in those top programs don't have a lot of stroke. You don't have the John Cena, Triple H types, The Rock. What you have is, Roman Reigns, who is still, wet behind the ears. Brock Lesnar, who is a part-time guy, pay me, pin me kind of guy. And Daniel Bryan, who for all his talent and his popularity has shown that, he'll go along and get along. So it maybe this year more than in past years, this very much feels like the writing staff's road to WrestleMania, and it shows. And again, I'm pretty underwhelmed.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple reasons for it. One that you touched on is that a lot of the guys featured don't really have the stroke like guys in the past. But you've also got a lot of matches that were penciled in a long time back and are still simmering. So, I mean, Triple H against Sting. Sting's not appearing on TV weekly. Triple H, they haven't made that a match official yet. It'll come out of Fast Lane, I'm sure. But, it's progressing towards that. But those guys aren't appearing regularly or wrestling regularly enough to tell that story. Bray Wyatt is penciled into a match against The Undertaker. But other than some kind of typically nebulous Bray Wyatt interviews, that hasn't really come to the forefront. And Brock Lesnar is not on TV every week. So say you've got 8 matches at WrestleMania. That's at least 3 of them right there. And those are guys that aren't even really regularly appearing. So that's a real problem. And then another problem, I think, is, and maybe this is, personally, I think this is one of the reasons that CM Punk had for his walkout when he left. The structure we're seeing with the WWE Network is different. WrestleMania was the biggest payout of the year. The wrestlers get a bigger proportion because fans pay more. They pay $59.99. They pay whatever. You get the big house. You get the marketing, the merchandise. That amount is going to drop significantly because so many fans are going to be watching it on the WWE Network. So it's not necessarily going to be the big payday that WrestleMania had been for the past 15, 20 years. So I don't know if it's not the huge payday event of the year in that capacity, maybe you don't get the same kind of level of excitement or enthusiasm that you have in the past. Now, certainly it's WrestleMania, so everyone's watching, everyone's talking about it. It's the highlight of the year. But if you're getting paid, say, a third of what you may have been getting paid for WrestleMania bonus a few years ago, and those are numbers off the top of my head, but it would stand to reason with the way the payouts are going to be with the WWE Network. It might make a little bit of a difference in your enthusiasm going into it.
Yeah, and certainly the main event picture is just very, very muddied. speaking now a few days before Fast Lane, we really still don't know what the main event of WrestleMania will be. There's a lot of talk now of a triple threat, which we both said a few weeks ago thought would be a bad idea. But maybe it's the least of all the evils. They may see it as a way of appeasing the fans and getting Daniel Bryan in that main event mix. But again, it just becomes kind of a mess. I thought Brock Lesnar versus John Cena versus Seth Rollins at Royal Rumble was just kind of the perfect situation for a three-way match. There was a legit three-way feud there, and it made sense to put Rollins in there, and he was able to take the pin, so Cena doesn't get hurt dropping too many matches to Lesnar, and I think it just made for a better match. But generally speaking, it's tough to tell a story of a three-way feud, and I don't know, but what do you do? I would understand WWE, for better or for worse, sticking to its guns and just saying, look, we made this call a year ago plus that it was going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Maybe everything hasn't gone the way we hoped, but let's just kind of grit our teeth and push along. Part of me even wants to see that because if it's a flop, if it doesn't work, at least it'll be kind of on its own merits, rather than just kind of piecing together, this mishmash with the thought that it'll appease Daniel Bryan fans. And again, in the end, it's just this kind of muddled mess. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, another way that they could go is, since three-ways was done at last year's WrestleMania and three-way was done just at the Royal Rumble, maybe you go with a fatal four-way, where a four-way elimination, and you put Seth Rollins in there too. And then maybe you have Brock Lesnar first man eliminated, so you know that there's going to be a title change. That builds the drama up. I always love it when promotions do that, when they have the fatal four-way, and it happened with Shimmer last fall, where cheerleader Melissa was the first person eliminated, and she was the favorite going into the match. So now you know that there's going to be a title change. Everybody's vested into the match. And then maybe you do a double turn where you have something happen where Daniel Bryan locks on the yes lock, and Roman Reigns passes out from the pain. Daniel Bryan won't let it go, that kind of thing, making Daniel Bryan a heel and kind of building some sympathy for Roman Reigns. There's a lot of ways that they can do that can make things a little bit different. The thing is, I don't think that they've decided yet. So,
yeah, I'm not sure they have either. And you know what? I don't think it's enough just to put together a combination that will make for a good match, a high-quality match, because that's almost after the fact. I've been pushing, as crazy as it is, for them to do John Cena versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. And my reasoning for that is it doesn't matter how bad it is. What's important is the poster, right? Hulk Hogan versus John Cena. It's the hype, it's the build, and then it is what it is. And it kind of works that way in the reverse too. The scenario you described, a four-way, and you put Seth Rollins in the mix. That has the makings of a very, very good match, technically speaking, enjoyment-wise, that kind of thing. But what's the poster? The poster is kind of, again, it's just sort of jumbled. It's a lot of guys. It's hard to tell a focused story. I think back to WrestleMania 2000 when they did the Fatal 4-Way,
yes,
and a McMahon in each corner. And it's just, you can't have the kind of focus that a WrestleMania main event storyline deserves. So again, they may be thinking, these extra ingredients and it makes for a better match, where a lot of people have concerns that one-on-one Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar could be a real mess because you really don't have anybody to kind of lead the dance in that match. But of all the options, it's probably the easiest and the most logical story to tell is the feud between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. But, it's what do you do with Daniel Bryan? If the thought was, I've heard Dolph Ziggler, I've heard Sheamus, I don't think any of that is going to be good enough for fans.
No.
They've been teasing Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton, which kind of makes sense, the grudge match, Orton coming back from the injury. But they, I don't know how whether he's in the main event or not. It's incredible to think that they didn't think of something better for Daniel Bryan. Regardless of whether they think he's the guy or not, you got to have something for him. Heading into WrestleMania. I don't know.
Yeah, what would be another interesting thing? This just kind of popped into my head. Think about WrestleMania and what they could do. Man, coming off the NXT event last week, wouldn't it be incredible if they had an NXT title match at WrestleMania?
I wouldn't rule it out. Triple H, again, wielding the power that he does, it's certainly plausible. Maybe it ends up being a dark match or something like that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some NXT guys working that show.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic if you can just imagine Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and everything on the WrestleMania stage. It would be really, it would be phenomenal. And again, that would be what WrestleMania should be: have something for everyone.
Yeah,
so
and
if you're a fan of kind of the alternative to WWE within the WWE brand, that would be the way to go.
Yeah. You mentioned Triple H and Sting. That looks to be the other kind of major match and the annual special attraction match at WrestleMania. I think so far they've done a fine job of building it. I think if you were going to have Sting work WrestleMania, and I think they should, I think it's the right match for him. Again, a lot of people are getting all excited about Sting versus Undertaker. That never made any sense to me. Who do you have lose? Who do you cheer? That really just wouldn't work. I think this has the feel of a big match. Two legends in there. Triple H could certainly, carrying Sting maybe has the wrong connotation. Sting is just fine, but the reality is that at his age, he is going to need somebody out there who could do a lot of the heavy lifting. Well, I think it would be a pretty good match.
Sting might actually have to carry Triple H. Triple H, for some of the matches he's had lately.
Yeah.
His match against Brock Lesnar, his match against Undertaker.
Daniel Bryan last year was really good, and those Shield Evolution matches were really good.
Well, he had two other guys in there. But a lot of the matches, they're outside the ring. For me, when you go outside the ring within the first 30 or 40 seconds of a match, it's basically a way of saying, listen, I can't go anymore. It's the Abdullah the Butcher thing. Like, I can't go in the ring anymore. Let's do garbage stuff for a little bit to cover it and then build up to our false finishes and everything else.
But you're going to need some of that smoke and mirrors with Sting. I remember seeing him work in the tail end of his TNA career. And again, I think the effort is there. I just think it's the reality of a guy who's pushing 60 at this point, has been doing it for 30 years. He's going to need some help in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that's interesting about this, I think, or maybe wrong-headed in a way, Triple H is kind of doing babyface promos as a heel, where he's saying that Sting is WCW and WWE beat WCW and he's WWE to the core. But the thing is, he's also the top heel. To me, it's kind of like that's something that a babyface would say and portray himself as being the face of WWE. It makes the fans almost want to rally behind him, but at the same time, he's still the top bad guy too. And it kind of bothers me about the whole authority is that you really can't have your cake and eat it too with a lot of these things that they do. Triple H and Stephanie kind of present themselves as the top villains on Raw, but they're also the face of the company publicly. They're tweeting pictures from the Super Bowl. They're backstage at NXT and being just, the happy business couple. And I know kayfabe is dead and everything else, but it just kind of bugs me to see, one day Triple H, hey, I'm in character now. I'm a bad guy. Now I'm just a regular guy. Everybody loves me. I'm Mr. WWE. And it rubs me the wrong way, especially these promos he's doing building up to this match with Sting.
Yeah, again, the way they've melded reality and kayfabe, it's just a mess. We get criticized about that some over at PWI, and I think we're doing a better job than WWE is these days. I mean, you saw it with the Austin podcast interview where during the show, Triple H is in character talking about, doing the podcast, and then he steps onto the stage and out of character, everything is shoot style.
Yeah.
It's been a real problem with Total Divas from the beginning where, the storylines on air reference Total Divas, but if you click over to Total Divas, they're, breaking kayfabe in their own way. I mean, Total Divas has a whole other level of kayfabe.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, they need some discipline. It's one thing that I really liked about Lucha Underground. I mean, to me, they decided on a vision and a tone, and it's essentially a drama, almost a film that you're watching, and it's these 3-point camera shoots and the dramatic music and the lighting, and I imagine several takes to do one scene, but it's consistent throughout, and I think even TNA is better about it than WWE. WWE has just gotten so lazy about it, and it constantly takes you out of it. I mean, a couple weeks ago when they announced the Fast Lane main event, and then having Triple H and Stephanie backstage talking about like, oh, what suckers? He didn't have to accept that. We couldn't make him put his Royal Rumble title shot on the line.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. Not only are you doing that in front of a camera, that's shown on the Tron in front of the fans, but you're doing that standing in front of a very staged area where they've got his workout DVD perfectly positioned for the camera. So it's like, again, they're performing on a stage. It's just a mess, and I get their defense of it is always, they have this disdain for what they do, being wrestling promoters. So they'll defend anything by saying, oh, it's just wrestling. Everybody gets it. But
and that's the worst thing. The worst thing in the world was, it's just wrestling, but we still want you to pay for it.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's wrestling. It doesn't matter. But, you still have to pay not that the $9.99 is going to break anyone's bank with the network, but it's still a product that fans are consuming and paying for. So you at least have to give them the respect that if people are going to pay for something, you can't just be like, oh, it's all wrestling. It doesn't matter. It's like,
right.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
Yep. Speaking of paying for something,
yes,
fans can and should pay for Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Oh, and they better.
Yeah, we really need it. Let's get the plugs out of the way. Fans can subscribe to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most respected wrestling publication around. They can do that by going to PWI-online and get a really great deal. You get 6 issues for less than $21. That's just $3.50 an issue, half off the cover price. You can get 12 issues for $39, an even deeper discount. And as I always talk about, if you want it faster and if you want it cheaper, go ahead and subscribe to the digital edition. Looks great on your mobile device, on your laptop. It's, I think, one of kind of the unheralded things that PWI has done in the last couple of years. Really put together a great digital product that's definitely worth checking out. You can get 6 issues of the digital edition of PWI for just $14.99. That's $2.50 an issue. I haven't talked about it that much, but you can also buy single issues at PWI-online.com. Sometimes they're hard to find at a newsstand. I'm sure a lot of places in the country, you don't have a whole lot of options to just pick one up. So if you want just the one, you could do that also. We also have some back issues that you could buy, and a web special, $4 off a lot of selected back issues. So do all that by going to PWI-online.com. I'll also talk a bit about our social media. You could follow us at official PWI. And what else? Our email, PWI Podcast at outlook.com. We would love to get your feedback on what we've been doing here now for about 2 months. I've been having a lot of fun doing it. Hope to keep doing it. So, where were we? You touched on NXT a little bit.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on the special last week?
I thought it was terrific. I thought that the women's match really stood out. I thought that the main event was great with the novel finish. And I thought, I think that it's really emerging as the hidden gem of wrestling right now is NXT. You talk about how there used to be people would think WWE, and then number 2 is TNA, number 3 is Ring of Honor. We might be seeing NXT as number 2, even though it's a WWE property. It might be the second best promotion in the U.S. right now. But
it might be the first best promotion in the U.S. Maybe the second biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really enjoyed